Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect episode 433. I'm David Lott. Joining me for this, as always, is Bobby Jackson. How's it going, Bobby?
Hey, it's going good. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. And
Good.
Michelle Hillard is also here.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Happy Mando Wednesday.
Yeah, is that a thing now? Is that
Mando Wednesday?
Mando Wednesdays? Is that what's going to be the saying?
I just said that. I hadn't heard that anywhere, but we can start it.
News to me.
Mando Wednesdays. Well,
Mando Wednesday.
Might need a little work, but I think we can go with it for now. But yeah, it is Mando Wednesday officially. And Michelle, what Michelle?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, it does feel that way. Like between the show and now Disney World's got its own Mando, and
They what?
We finally got our Mando here.
we got our Mando.
You know what? I
Galaxy's
think
Edge.
I saw something right before we came on that on Twitter, and they were showing like a line of people surrounding, and in the caption it said "Mandalorian is here" and something or other, and there's a big crowd of people, and they're all trying to, take a picture or video the Mandalorian there, and I didn't go deep into the comments of it, but my question was, when they say the Mandalorian is there, did Pedro Pascal show up there, or was this like because the crowd wise, I'm thinking maybe one of the actors is there because of the size of the crowd, not that someone was, the character of the Mandalorian. So I was like, huh.
Because you guys have had, I guess, the Disney Mando character at Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland for a little while.
I think 6 months you guys have had him.
And I didn't know. It's funny. I didn't know until this morning, for various reasons, that I didn't even know we didn't have it here. And then, like, literally the day I find out, we don't have that at Disney World. Like, they announced, or it was revealed today that now he's at Disney World. I'm like,
as of today,
there he is.
Now at Disney World,
which makes sense since
finally he's at Baku.
Since it's Mando Wednesday.
It is Mando.
It's so
even
that he shows up.
Even the Orlando International Airport got in on it today and had like a guy dressed as like Mando riding the
like on their Instagram account, their social media, our Orlando Airport social media people did this whole video with the Mandalorian wearing shorts, walking around. It's really silly.
Because we have our own little monorail system at the airport, and he was riding the monorail. He just got to Orlando. I was like, wow.
I'm so surprised the governor allowed that there.
Getting political.
Okay.
I'm just saying, he just does not seem to like things that deal with Disney, and to go to the airport and have all that big hullabaloo,
All I'll say is that he had his hands full apparently this morning. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Okay.
But our mayor is pretty chill, and he's pretty awesome, and he definitely endorsed it.
Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, so we will definitely be getting into some Mandalorian. It is the three of us, and all three of us have seen the episode, so we will be talking about that. Give a little bit of our thoughts, and then give a little bit of a spoiler warning, and talk some nitty gritty about the episode, because there's definitely some things I'd like to bring up within that.
And we'll do that toward the end of the episode, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, it's only like a half-hour episode. There's only so much we can not talk about.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think we'll dig into a 2-hour discussion on the first 30-minute episode of Mandalorian.
No. And we have some news to go along with the Mandalorian show as well. So, but in other news, we do have some other news to discuss. And one of the things that we just talked about last week was a big movie from Marvel that came out, which was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And it had opened that weekend to 104 million, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did discuss during that last week's episode what the drop off would be. And what we were talking about within that was that usually an acceptable drop off rate is anywhere between 50 and 60%. Well, it looks like Ant-Man did not have a small drop off. It unfortunately had a pretty huge drop off, which was at, if I'm not mistaken, 69%. And
yeah, 69.9%.
yeah, which is only I guess no, I think it broke it. So now it is the lowest, because the second lowest drop, or I should say highest drop,
Right.
from an MCU movie was, I believe, Thor: Love and Thunder, which was at 67% drop or something around that neighborhood. So yeah, I'm sure Disney's not happy with that news, which, David, last week you had mentioned that it made you a little bit nervous knowing that the writer of this is also writing Kang Dynasty. So
speaking of that, man, I have to pull this up in front of me. I don't have it in front of me. Like, I knew, I guess I knew that he had written some episodes of Rick and Morty, but really I didn't know much about his background. And I think it was yesterday I went to look at least at his IMDb, credits, which is usually pretty accurate. I doubt there's really anything notable he's done that wouldn't be on that list. I didn't realize, like, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was his first feature film, like, writing gig, and he's the only other, I think, film he's got lined up is the Avengers, the Kang Dynasty film, which blows my mind. And not to say that somebody who hasn't written a film before isn't capable of, writing a good movie, but I don't know. I'm a little surprised that he was not only hired to write this film and to bring like a bigger kind of story to an Ant-Man film, but then also an Avengers film. That,
I wonder how many more writers they're going to tack on that film now.
Well, that's interesting because, it's what I find weird. Maybe not weird, but interesting. I'd say that at the very least, about the whole Jeff Loveness thing with him being attached to Kang Dynasty and this movie, and the heat that he's getting from this movie is, doesn't it normally fall on the director's shoulders when a movie doesn't do that good? But
like,
in this case, why is and not Peyton Reed?
Well, I want to say, I mean, I think he's gotten some attention because of, I know, at least I think I don't know if it was a Variety exclusive, but a Variety article that came out this week, kind of talking, with some quotes from him about, like, how he was surprised by the critical reviews and he was really sad about it and everything. Maybe that's why, just in general, in the kind of film Twitter verse, he's getting more attention than many other writers would get. I don't know, I'm just speculating.
Yeah, I do have like that article pulled up where he talks about it a little bit, and I'll just quote from what he's saying. He says, to be honest, those reviews took me by surprise. And he's, in fact, in this article, he's talking about the critic reviews that came out prior to the movie coming out in theaters and being able to have everyone see it initially. So he said, to be honest, those reviews took me by surprise. Loveness recently told the Daily Beast about the extreme critical bashing Quantumania faced. I was in a pretty low spot. Those were not good reviews, and I was like, what the question mark? I'm really proud of what I wrote for Jonathan Majors and Michelle Pfeiffer, Loveness added. I thought that was good stuff, And so I was just despondent, and I was really sad about it. And then it goes on to say, Loveness got in better spirits after he decided to attend a public screening of Quantumania after the negative reviews came out. The screenwriter listened as audience members laughed at many of the jokes he added to the script. He says, I'm like, goddamn, no, the reviews are wrong. I'm right. MODOK is great, he said of watching the film on opening weekend. I'm pretty happy with it overall, and I think I learned how to take a punch this week. And now that I'd learned that it's not too bad, I can just get on with making things. So I feel like what is that phrase called when you kind of just take a very small sample size and decide that that's the narrative?
Like a kind of like a case study. Is that what
Well,
you mean?
it's something along those lines, but it's really like he just took one thing, one audience screening to say that no, all the critics were wrong, which
Yeah.
is odd to me. And I like the movie, so I'm a record as saying I like the movie. But for him to say he went to one audience screening and that they enjoyed it, that's all he
It's like, oh, I
needed.
feel better.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know
He
that
felt
that's
vindicated in that.
right.
I mean, you didn't blame him though. Like if I were in his shoes,
Yeah,
and like I were seeing the critical response to this movie, and I was feeling pretty down, and I went to one screening, and I was like, oh wow, people are really responding to this. Sadly, I probably would be like, okay, I'm good. Like I would ride that wave and just
yeah.
to get myself through, like knowing, man, if I start going to more and more screenings, I may not always be like this. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not saying he's right, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
It seems
Yeah.
a little tone deaf. A little
Oh
bit.
yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, like David just said, if we were in his shoes, we'd probably all do kind of the same thing. But yeah, like it gives me concerns for the Avengers film. And I'm saying this, and I really enjoyed Quantumania. I acknowledge there's a lot of issues in Quantumania, and I could see them. The thing is, though, is I can kind of overlook it a little bit and kind of move on past those things because I enjoy the character of Ant-Man and I enjoy the storyline. But I'll tell you, for an Avengers film, there's an A game level that needs to be brought. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, I'm not going to be able to overlook a lot of stuff. I'm not going to be able to go, yeah.
Because you're also looking at an Avengers
fine.
film. I mean, at this point, we don't even know who the Avengers are.
Correct.
You're already you've got big shoes to fill doing an Avengers film that will, I mean,
stand out
or feel anything like the Avengers films we've had so far. And we all know it's going to be different, but still, like, there's going to be expectations being an Avengers movie.
Oh, it's an uphill battle for sure. Yeah. Like, so it definitely has me kind of going, okay, so who else is helping this kid write this? Like, you know, right. I say kid, just...
Well, I think the good thing that we can kind of take from it is that there'll be a lot more scrutiny and eyes on this script now because of, I would imagine, this second week drop off. Like I said, it has to be concerning to Marvel because being the highest drop off, and this is the start of their new phase where everything is supposed to really become what comes into vision from all this other stuff that we've had from 4 coming into this, and Kang being the big bad of this part of the phase. That I cannot imagine that they won't get a second pair of eyes on that script. So yeah,
I would hope.
Yeah, you would think.
Coming from the guy who was not that happy with Ant-Man, I really hope.
Yeah.
Like, if I see or even smell a whiff of any kind of resurrection of MODOK moving forward, my doubt scale is going to get it. Like, the alarm bells are just going to be sounding.
I don't think you have to worry about that.
I hope, oh God, not. Like, oh my gosh. Like, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, he did have a different article that I saw where he was talking about a little bit about Kang Dynasty. And in one of the articles, he kind of gives a little bit of a spoiler of one of the people that will show up in there. So I won't talk about that specifically. It's out there if you want to know who that person is that's going to show up in Kang Dynasty. But within this one, he was talking to Variety, and he kind of mentions a little bit about Kang himself, and then he will give like a little bit of a tease in terms of what he's looking to go for with Kang. And he says, "I just feel like we have such a great launching pad with Jonathan Majors. He's so down for stuff. Every time I talk to him, he's got a new insight," Loveness explained. We're trying to build out new and engaging forms of Kang that are hopefully just as good as the ones well, kind of messed up in the wording, are hopefully just as good as the ones that we saw. I'm trying to make this a revenge story and a bit of a self-discovery story. I'm trying to make him more vulnerable than Thanos, more human than Thanos. And then he says, I guess it's the X-Men fan in me, but Magneto is maybe my favorite villain in storytelling. He's such a compelling villain because you just bleed for this guy and you sympathize with him so much. So I think we really have an opportunity to have a passionate, vulnerable villain on a crusade against himself, and the Avengers are in the way. That's kind of the fun thing about Kang in the comics. The Avengers are more just a thorn in his side. He's basically trying to handle his own stuff, but it's always like Thor kind of gets in his way. He's more about the bigger game. He represents a fun existential challenge to even the idea of superheroes and if they're necessary or not. So I feel like based on that, that sounds interesting to me. That sounds like something I would like to see
Yeah.
as
Agreed.
far as the
I would
villain.
agree.
And
Yeah.
I just don't know if everything surrounding that will be as well put together as what he just said about how he wants to represent the Kang that will be in Kang Dynasty. Because yeah, everyone I think really gravitates to a villain that they can kind of relate to in some form or fashion. Like everyone may not have agreed with Thanos's motives, but they could kind of be like, okay, I can kind of see where he's coming from. Obviously, that holds true for Magneto, just like you mentioned. And another person I would add to that list that people have that feeling about is Killmonger. So
Mhm.
to make someone in that
Yeah.
mold, I think for a villain, this is going to be your big one for this phase. It's I think a good idea, and everything he says that sounds from this article sounds great. So that part gives me hope, but I still think that we might need someone in there to help realize that and make sure that it stays in a way that I think people could be able to get on board with more so than they were able to, at least with Ant-Man Quantumania and the Wasp Quantumania.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have anything to add to your thoughts. Like,
well, at the very
Fingers
least,
crossed.
I wanted to put that out there just because
yeah,
we had been talking about, well, what does Kang Dynasty hold since he's writing this? And it
Right.
looks like, at least based on surface level of what he's saying there, he's on the right track in terms of how he's envisioning Kang. So it's just the rest of the stuff around it has to be just as solid. So, and yeah, based on what I can know of some of the people that might be appearing in the movie, it seems like it could be very exciting.
it sounds like he could be in a position where, if he's coming up with the original idea for the story here, it sounds like it could be a solid story. But then I would still stick with my desire to find somebody else to, like you already said, to oversee what he writes, or
Mm-hmm.
to take that idea and write a better script than we've at least seen so far. And I mean, I almost feel bad saying this. I don't know this guy. Like, I wish him the best. I hope he has a great career. It was his first film.
Yeah.
Like, I read that article. I get it.
Yeah.
Your first film is this big Marvel movie, and then you see the reviews, and they're not the worst, but yeah, they're not what you're hoping for.
Yeah.
It's not a shining review.
No.
So did you say that he wrote for the first film and then he also wrote for this third Ant-Man?
No.
Just this Ant-Man.
This is his first film, period.
This is out the gate.
Like, his credits include, like, I think he did some work on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Yeah, some random stuff. Miracle Workers. He was
Okay.
that show on TBS.
Yeah.
I think he's done some writing for that. He's written some episodes. It looks like 6 episodes of Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully his comedy finds a better fits a little better.
But yeah, like, I saw that quote when I read that Variety article about MODOK. Yeah, MODOK is great. I'm like, no, sorry.
No, MODOK's not
It's
good.
really not.
I'm sorry, dude.
I don't know what
Really
screening you went
sorry.
to where, I mean, I'm happy for you that you heard some positive reaction to that character. And I'm not saying everything about that character was terrible. If anything, like his final joke, I'll put it that way without spoilers, was pretty good.
The Avengers one?
Yeah.
That was a pretty good joke.
I'm an Avenger.
Yeah.
But
I thought the best part was really just when Cassie was like, just don't be a dick. That for me was the best part of MODOK. The rest of it, I was like, yeah, whatever.
but no, MODOK was not.
No, MODOK was horrible. It was trash.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the Ant-Man news. Wait, what just happened there?
Nothing. She's referencing, I sent a TikTok to her today, and it was actually a clip from Harley Quinn, the animated show on HBO. And the person who made the TikTok was pointing out the fact that Bane is one for grammar. Yeah.
He's a grammar fiend, grammar Nazi. Character of Bane on there. And I guess he was just pointing out as an example of horrible grammar in the world.
Like the dangling modifier. Like
people say anyways
when it's just anyway. I found it amusing because it's true.
And I've always I always just say anyways more as a joke. I'm always like, anyways. Like I kind of say it as like a I get what you mean. I wasn't I wasn't sending it to you like directed at you. I was just thought it was it is funny.
I had heard about that and I laughed to myself because I've never heard anyone
say correctly.
Most people say anyways. I don't. I say anyway. And I've always thought it was anyway, not anyways. And so I've never tried to correct anyone on it. But so many people say it that way that at one point I started to doubt myself and like, well, is it anyway?
Oh, I've had that
literally people that I would say are very smart will say anyways. And so I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong.
It's like the amount of people that say I could care less. That drives me up the wall. I'm like, no, it's I couldn't care less. And like you just said, people who you would think would know, like you hear it so much that I'm like, wait, am I wrong?
No, am I the crazy?
I couldn't care less literally makes sense.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So when I had heard about that, I was like, oh, look, it is a thing. And it's not just me that notices it, but that is funny because it is one of the things that I wouldn't say it drives me crazy because it doesn't, but it's definitely something I notice every time.
It doesn't drive me crazy
for sure. So let's see, going back, I guess. So that was pretty much it for the Ant-Man stuff. I didn't have anything else more to say there, unless you guys had something additional you wanted to add.
Nope.
I will say just real quick, before I transition over into our Mandalorian stuff, there was an item that popped up. I think it was late last week, that Stephen Yeun will be appearing in the Thunderbolts movie.
Oh yeah.
And they said that his part will be important, and not just in that movie, but also future MCU stories. So the big I saw that one of the people on Twitter and in the YouTube sphere, Grace Randolph, she had sent out a tweet, and she's not always accurate with the things that she talks about. As David shakes his head, no, not at all.
David's like, don't get me started.
Right.
Don't even get me started.
But she mentioned, and because one of the theories of who he might be playing was this character that's in the comic books who's closely related to the Incredible Hulk character, is a character named Amadeus Choi. And she said that he's definitely not that character.
She said that, you said?
She said, yeah, he's definitely not that character. And so that leads everyone else to believe that he might be another character that's rumored to be in Thunderbolts that has not been confirmed in any way, form, or fashion. But the general idea that's out there that the Thunderbolts would be going up against is this character from the comics called Sentry. And so they're saying that he might be that character, Sentry, which is, for those who don't know, somewhat of a Marvel version of Superman, so to speak. But yeah, so we do not know who he will be, but I'm sure we will find out in the coming months, probably, maybe even at Comic-Con.
I didn't know when you search like Marvel characters on their own like Marvel.com, it gives you like this whole like scoring system for like durability 4, energy 5, fighting skills 7.
Wow.
Yeah. It reminds me of the old cards I used to collect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give you those things, those stats. Yeah.
Sorry.
So
I've never seen a picture of him before. He almost looks like
him?
He almost looks like Thor meets Superman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The golden
one,
blonde hair and the massive size in terms of his physique. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
So that's pretty much all of our.
Show him quickly.
Oh,
okay.
Oh wow.
Well, no, that's different.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah,
that's Sentry, right?
Yeah. Well, unless they decided to change the name of his spelling, or spelling of his name, it should be Sentry.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
No worries. I would think.
Pull up the right one then, David.
Well, I'll get it right.
Get it right, David. Yeah,
is that Sentry? Is he like one of like a friend of Thor that we just haven't been introduced to as far as the MCU goes? Or
that one that he just showed? I don't know. I've never even seen that character before, so it's probably.
Oh yeah, this looks totally different.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now you have to bring it up to clarify for the audience.
Hold on.
He's gotta pull it in and import it.
I gotta get a better.
A little bit of better view of the character.
You wanted to use StreamYard. I'm joking. I'm making a joke. Wow.
Oh, that look.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not as familiar.
No,
I'm not as familiar with Sentry as a character in the comics. I didn't read a lot of stuff with him in it, but if I'm not mistaken, and one of the things about the character is that he is
that's different.
Yeah, he has this dual personality thing going on, or something of an Incredible Hulk kind of thing, mentally unstable sort of thing going on. But it sounds like he'd be an interesting character and to bring into the MCU. So be on the lookout at some point for that possibility of that character showing up.
Interesting.
I like the other Sentry.
Yeah,
the one that I have no clue of.
I have to read up on these and be like, what's the difference between other than the way they spell our name?
All right, so let's get into the meat of what we are going to discuss today. Before we get into the review of the episode, there was, like I mentioned, a couple news articles that came up this week about the Mandalorian. And one of those things was an article in which Dave Filoni mentioned that in an article, I think he was on a podcast, I can't remember, but Total Film Magazine, he said, for the series, I think the beauty of this is that it's a middle chapter of a much larger story. And then he goes on to say, and though we'll have resolution over time with these characters, it's not like there's a finale that we're building to that I have in mind. Quite the contrary. I love for these stories to go on, and so these characters potentially could be with us for a while. I really love telling stories in their voice, and I love the way that the adventures unfold, and I'm looking forward to doing much more. So, in his mind, there's no end in sight for the Mandalorian. And David, I remember when I sort of posted this article in our chat, you had thoughts, but you did not go into them. You decided to save them for us streaming. So I'm very curious as to how are you feeling about Mandalorian possibly
about
being around
about
for
him not
quite some
having
time?
a set story here. Like it sounds like
Full circle
there is not
closure.
a goal here with some of the things they're doing. Obviously, it sounds like they've written the character into situations that I'm sure those situations they have an idea of where they're going, but
Right.
in a broader sense, there wasn't like, okay, we're making the show The Mandalorian, and I know it's going to be 4 or 5 seasons, and when it ends, this is how it's going to end. It's obvious now that that's not like how they've approached this series, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm of mixed feelings on this. I'll be honest. It's in a most of me is like, that's fine. You know, unlike when Disney decided to make a trilogy of films and not have a plan. I mean, with the style of storytelling they're doing in this show, this uh episodic, mostly episodic, somewhat serialized, but mostly episodic show that they've made. It's kind of like reading a comic book in a lot of ways. Like it just kind of keeps going and going and going. like and
Yeah.
I in that sense I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, I think from the very first episode of The Mandalorian, with the reveal of this character that we don't know the race, it's this guy here, looks like Yoda, like what's going on here. It immediately, I think, gives you this sense of like, oh, this show has a plan. Like, where is this going? But at the same time, I don't know. I think what it comes down to, are you writing good episodes and a good show overall, or are you not? And so far, generally speaking, they're making a good show. So if it weren't good, I'd probably be hating this, but as it is, the show is entertaining, so I guess I don't really have any complaints. But I'm of mixed feelings. There's a part of me though that there is some serialized aspects to what the story they seem to be telling, and it's like it did make me think there was like a bigger plan for Mandalore and for Grogu and his training and all that jazz. But if not, hey, if the show's good, that's fine. If my response makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I do wonder though, because just last week Michelle was saying basically how it could have been one season and that could have been it. And so now knowing that there's literally no plan for it to end, literally, Michelle, how you handling that news?
Well, I mean, I think for me, I would have been happy if it had ended at season 2, the way season 2 ended. I thought that was great. I felt like it really wrapped it up and left on a good note. And then things got really muddled in Boba Fett. I was not a fan. I don't know. It just seemed like they brought them in to save that series, or try to save that series, but then also like to kick off this 3rd season. And I don't know. I think historically in shows that I've watched that they've actually been like, actually, we didn't really have a major plan. We just kind of are going with it. I feel like the show will still have the first couple seasons are good. First 2, 3, maybe even 4 seasons, great. And then the show just loses its way, and I feel like it never really kind of comes back from it.
Well, Michelle, if that does happen, all you need is Mando, and he'll show you that this is the way. So,
all right,
David,
that
you knew it was
coming,
coming,
everybody.
Yeah.
No.
All right, I gotta go now. The laundry go off. I'm gonna switch it over. No, like when I think about shows that I've loved, like West Wing, Lost, How I Met Your Mother, like there's a bunch of shows that the creators openly said somewhere usually after the 2nd season, they go, actually, we have no idea how we're gonna wrap this up. We're just kind of going with it. And then and they hold true for a season or two more after that, and then it just kind of gets weird and wonky, and I feel like the writing is never as good, the stories are never as good, and then when they finally get to the last season, it just feels like they're just throwing everything in together to get to wrap up in some kind of way, shape, or form. And I know they're saying Mando can just go on forever, or the Mandalorian can go on forever, or whatever you want to say it is. But I'm like, at some point, they're going to say, we got to wrap this up. It's going to be weird. So, from my opinion, is that I feel like the track record of when I hear that kind of stuff in TV shows, it never seems to end well.
Well, if I may, and like, because as soon as you mentioned how, in previous things you've seen where that this has kind of been brought up, it hasn't ended well, and the first thing I thought of was Lost, and then you brought up Lost, but to me that's a very different situation. I mean, Lost is extremely serialized, like it is episode after episode. Apparently, we're learning a little more each episode, and it is apparent from the very beginning we are building toward learning whatever mystery they presented us. And here, yeah, there's a little bit like, oh, there's this creature that looks like Yoda. What's he? But other than that, I mean, each episode kind of stands on its own. He goes on a different little adventure. In that sense, the show's more episodic, and I don't look at it like a loss. I mean, because I agree with a show like Lost. When I heard too that there was no plan, I'm like, yeah, this was obvious. There was no plan, because I mean, but that's coming from someone I wasn't a big fan of Lost. But I don't know. You get what I'm saying? That's why I think this.
I know what you're saying. I'm not trying to put this show in the same category as that show. Mostly just saying that when I hear that a writer for a TV show, or the producers, the people that put on a show, usually when I hear that they go, we have no idea, that makes me go, great, cool. We just be winging it season to season. Sure. And I feel like it might hold kind of true to what I'm enjoying for the first 2, maybe 3 seasons. And then it starts slipping and things get kind of like, oh, writing's not quite as good.
Well,
but I guess I would
not as great as they were.
It's something I'm sure I'm sure if you asked, Gene Roddenberry or whoever else, like when Star Trek Next Generation hit the air, I doubt there was like, yep, we have a 7-season plan for this show, and it's going to be like, this is where the Enterprise is going to end up when it's all said and done. I mean, that was extremely episodic, but I mean,
although they did say in Star Trek, doesn't it in Captain Kirk say, or is it Next Generation? One of them says how long their mission is.
Well,
they don't say in terms like, they don't say, oh, we're going for this many seasons based on this being how many, how long our mission is. But you would almost kind of put the two together and thinking that I wouldn't be.
Well, if you're speaking specifically for Next Gen, I would say that it's the rare case of, oh, well, we don't know exactly how we're going to wrap it up. And they actually did do a good job wrapping it up, because they linked the last 2 episodes back to the first episode.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just giving a random example.
That example actually is hey, this actually worked, where we didn't know what the hell we were doing, but like we pulled it off in the end.
This is my way of saying there's definitely examples I think we can agree that this has been done well, and then there's others where it's not done well.
And I would say,
in my personal opinion, is that I feel that when I hear that, it usually doesn't go. I don't have stats in front of me. I'm just my general feeling. That's all.
What I would say bodes well for it in that respect is the fact that it was, maybe we learned earlier this week or towards the tail end of last week, when Jon Favreau had mentioned that he already has season 4 written, and we just started season 3. So obviously there's some level, of planning going on. Give me 1 second. I got a call. Sorry about that. So it means that there's some level of planning going on, that even if they don't necessarily know where they're going to go and how they're going to end it, they're at least giving thoughts into where a season should go. As he mentioned in the article, or wherever he talked about it at, is that they have other shows coming out on Disney Plus that he wanted to make sure that his story for season 4 lines up with what those other shows are going to be doing, since they take place around the same time frame that Mandalorian does. So there is that thought that's going into these things for that.
Right.
And I think my only initial concern was the fact that, sort of to Michelle's point, where a lot of shows will maybe not necessarily know specifically the all the way the through line. Some of them will at least know where they want to end. It's just a matter of how they get to that ending. And
Mhm.
I thought that the Lost guys had mentioned that initially when the show was out, and they didn't know specifically how they were going to get to their ending, but they knew how they wanted it to end. And so I think that is at least one of the things that when I noticed when he said that, he didn't even have that in mind. So that made me kind of like, wow, I would at least would have thought that he knows how he wants this series to end, even if he doesn't know how he's going to get there from
Right.
season to season. And I think that that's one of the things that I appreciate Vince Gilligan for doing with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I believe he knew where he wanted to end up with both of those series and was able to craft season after season as they got picked up for the seasons to be able to still make a compelling story that would get you to closer to that ending without having to worry about, okay, well, um I'm already running out of story, I need to get to my ending now, or without it feeling like it was just being stretched on as filler just to get to that end of the story. So I think that, like you said, there's ways that we've seen that you can do that and it works, and ways that they even know where they're going and it still doesn't work. So in this case, I at least initially was a little apprehensive about the idea of it, but then as I did think about it a little bit more, I was remembered the fact that season 4 is already written, and felt a little bit better about the fact that they are planning these things out ahead of time. And I wouldn't imagine that after a little bit of a break and within this time frame, they'll start breaking story for season 5. So, I think that we'll be okay, and as long as they kind of take that strategy in mind as they build out each season and tell us stories. And like David pointed to, since it's not all strictly going as in one big story, one episode leading to the next, and we have like side quests and all the different things, that there's ways that this story can be able to go on for more than one, 5, 6 seasons, and it could go on more. And one last thing I remember him saying was that, and I didn't read the full thing, but I think Favreau had mentioned that there's ways that this story could go on, that it would even lead all the way into uh, the sequels of the Star Wars franchise, meaning episodes 7, 8, 9.
Hmm.
And he was basically saying, well, uh, just because our main characters in 7, 8, or 9 are fighting one battle doesn't mean that our characters from The Mandalorian are not somewhere else fighting some other battle in some place we don't know. So
Right.
yeah, I was like, well, that's true. So it just goes to show, which leads to my next thing that Favreau said, because time is a tricky thing when it comes to Star Wars. And this next article
I'm
kind
ready
of
for this.
bears that out a little a little bit. uh David's ready. So okay, in an article for where he was talking to a podcast named Sky Talkers, uh John Favreau said that, according to Favreau, those 2 seasons, which takes place for the Mandalorian season 1 and season 2, which begin 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, take place over many years, but did not clarify exactly how long a period that is. And furthermore, he also claimed that 2 years passed between the season 2 finale, The Return, and episodes 6 and 7 of the spin off limited series, The Book of Boba Fett. The return saw Grogu, the powerful Force-sensitive charge of Din, leave to train with the original film star Luke Skywalker, while the final 2 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett saw him abandon his training to reunite with his adoptive father. Whew. So that caught me off guard. When I watched Book of Boba Fett, at no time did I think that there had been that much time that had passed. By the time that they get reunited.
I definitely. I don't know why, but in my head, I guess I was given the impression that it was anywhere from 6 weeks to just a very few months went by. Like,
right.
Like it wasn't a very long time that he was with Skywalker. Like it just seemed very like,
yeah.
It's been like 6 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3 months. Good 90 days have occurred.
Right.
Like it didn't feel like, wow, 2 whole years. Like, I mean, I've never trained as a Jedi, but I feel like Grogu would be further along in 2 years. But he's also a child. I don't know. 2 years seems very big.
Yeah. David, what are you thinking?
Man. I don't know. I don't even know how to respond to that. Like
even the length of time, I'm just hearing this. Well, even the length of time for the 2 seasons, that seems very like
right.
Wow.
So you were just reading quotes. Okay. So he was quoted as saying the first 2 seasons took place over, he said, quote, many years.
Yeah. Season 1 and season 2.
And then there was a 2-year span that basically Grogu was with Luke training before he returned to Din Djarin.
In the Book of Boba Fett, yeah.
This is the kind of stuff, like hearing that he has no plan for this style of TV show, fine. Like you keep making a good show, I don't care. But when you get quoted saying stuff like this, this is the stuff that bothers me, man. Like
frame it into a timeline.
Like there's nothing, I mean, everything you just said, Michelle, like there's nothing about the way that this story has been told so far to indicate, I think, to audiences that that many years passed over the span of those first 2 seasons, and that he was with Luke for 2 years. And I'm not saying there needs to be a title card and, like SpongeBob SquarePants, like 2 years later, like, no,
right.
Like I'm not saying it needs to be that blatantly indicated in the show, but the way that this story has been told, I think you can tell from the general reaction of people to this news that there has been no indication by the way you've told the story that that's what's going on here. I'm not, I mean, sure, we don't know how much time is passing here and there. And, if he had said like, yeah, he was with Luke for, a few months, that would make sense. But 2 years, like, really? Like, and then again, the many years for those first 2 seasons, like
many years. I mean, like there was times in there it definitely felt like, okay, a few months have gone by. Like they've been you could tell maybe like a good, time good 2 months have gone by between this one. Okay, fine. Years.
And this is the kind of thing that feels like a reaction to people going, why is he back with Mando so quickly? Like us, like, I as much as I'm enjoying the show, I mean, I still agree, like that was not great. Like, I think it really makes the finale of season 2 worse. I say worse, like it was bad. No, it was great. I loved the finale,
but quite perfection.
But it kind of like takes away from the power of that finale to now suddenly have them back together again already. And by just saying, well, but there was 2 years past, like, yeah, but like we didn't see that. I'm not saying we need to see everything that goes on, and obviously episode to episode or season to season time will pass. I'm all for that, but like it feels like he's just deciding like after the fact, Like,
well, that's
Yeah.
exactly
that's
what
not
I was going to say, is that I think that the only reason why he's given a timeline now is because of how many people noticed and had complaints about how quickly they reunited Grogu
right.
and Din. And I think that the again, sort of taking another step back, and something we have also discussed maybe a couple weeks ago or even last week, is that maybe Grogu wasn't even supposed to be a part of another season. Maybe they were going to be a part a lot longer in actual real time per episode that we would see, that maybe he wouldn't show up until later on in season 3. But because of how many new people were watching this show and coming to Star Wars, specifically because of how much they love Grogu, that Disney and Lucasfilm said, no, you have to have more Grogu. And so now they were kind of, I don't know, maybe their hand was forced a little bit to bring him back maybe sooner than they would have liked to. And now to explain that, they had to come up with this. And so it's unfortunate. And sorry, David, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, I
No, you're
think that
fine.
that goes along the lines of, why they kind of had to do that.
We need to dive into this episode. I'm ready.
I want to hear your chin for it, huh?
Okay, well, with that, then we've got season 3, episode 1 of Mandalorian. What is it called? The Apostate, I think, or something
I
like
think
that.
it's just called Apostate.
Apostate, yeah. So, Michelle, since you're ready to dive in,
You're ready.
I mean,
we're not talking spoilers yet.
I will say,
not
like,
yet, not
I
yet.
will say
No
this is
spoilers.
gonna be quick then. And again, like, I was like not looking forward to this, but I tried going into it today in a positive light. And I tried to go like, yeah, okay, let's do this. It's Mando. Get to listen to Pedro Pascal with his little voice on this. Like, it's cool. It'll be great. I'll be honest, I was not amazed by this episode. Like, for a start the season, I was like, yeah, it's okay. I feel like there's just a lot of forced things in it, and I honestly really actually didn't enjoy it until the last probably like 5 minutes of the episode.
Okay, interesting.
But I will say I liked the last 5 minutes. I was like, hey, okay.
But how does this make you feel in terms of going forward, based on how you felt about this first episode?
It's hard. Like, I mean, I think the problem for me is that it's Star Wars, and I am so invested in a franchise that it's almost hard for me to be like, no, I'm good. I'm backing off of it. It would be like if I watched a couple of the shows for Marvel, and if I saw one that I didn't like, I'd be like, yeah, I'm never watching another Marvel show again. Like, I can't do that just because I didn't like a Marvel show. But because for me, I'm like, well, one show is a different show, but this, I don't know, it's hard. Like, there's a part of me like, if this wasn't Star Wars, and the season 3 started out kind of rocky to me, like this feels to me, I'd be like, all right, I got 2 more episodes to keep me alive here. And if after the 3rd episode in the season, because I kind of have a 3-episode rule in general, like if that 3rd episode doesn't do it, I don't know. Let me pull out this really long list of other TV shows I can dedicate my free time to and start those. And I'm not watching because I'm watching this. So, but at the same time, like, because it's Star Wars, I'm almost like, I feel like my hands are tied. I feel like I have to watch it even if I'm not enjoying it. Like Book of Boba Fett.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Didn't like it, but I feel like my hands are tied to watch it.
Like, I guess I find that interesting, considering kind of like along the lines of what we just heard. Like, there's no plan. Again, the style of the show mostly is just kind of episode to episode, kind of mission or quest to quest, adventure to adventure. Like, it's not like overall this show is like, it doesn't appear to have a major like tie-in to anything where you're like, man, I've got to know what happens in this to complete my Star Wars fandom. I mean, I would imagine I'm saying this as someone who's going to keep watching the show, but I would imagine like if you didn't like this, you'd be fine not watching the show. And it's not like, I hate to say you're not missing anything, but
in some ways,
yeah, and in some ways you're not missing anything important.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Right.
So I find it interesting that you're like, no, I have to watch this even if it's bad.
Yeah.
Like, do you though? Like, I'm not asking you to stop, but
it's like, I guess on the one side, the good thing is it's not like we've got a slew of movies that they're ready to come out pretty soon that's going to feed into it in some way, shape, or form, like he does with Marvel. So it's kind of like, okay, whatever. I don't know. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see.
It's interesting because, like David said, I would even say that with the things with Marvel that you do have to, not have to, but it's highly suggested that you would watch everything in order to be able to grasp the larger picture of some of the things that will show up in the films. But correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't watch all of She-Hulk, right?
Yeah, we still have to finish She-Hulk. I mean, like, I'd be curious to finish watching She-Hulk, mostly just to see what if anything ties into the bigger picture down the road. But I'm not like, there's another part who's kind of like, yeah, I'll figure it out.
So that's kind of where my point is. Like, why would this be any different then? Because I don't think that this
turn in my Star Wars fandom card, Bobby.
You will not, because
Michelle, I mean, you've already turned in your Marvel fandom card. You
exactly. Well, in that sense,
remember I took it from you. It's back.
My thought is that, and this may not happen now that Bob Iger is back and there's less of a mandate of just pushing things out, but it could very well have gotten to a point where, much like Marvel, Star Wars would just be pumping out different shows, and not every show is going to be for everyone in the way that I think some of the Marvel series are. They're not for everyone, but you're more than welcome to join in and enjoy and see how these things may tie into the larger cinematic movie universe. But I think that, let's say when Skeleton Crew comes out, if you're not feeling it, I don't think it would be bad to not watch it if it's just not your jam. And any more than, like, I would say that someone who wasn't a big fan of the Ahsoka character, if they don't want to watch, I don't think it's going to affect their enjoyment of the larger movies that come out once we start getting more of those coming out. So
I think,
or if you haven't watched Rebels or Clone Wars either.
I think the other thing that's challenging now is, like, when I compare the show, not that you should compare the shows, but it's like when I compare the show to Boba Fett, obviously I think Mandalorian is a better show. When I compare it to Obi-Wan, I think Mandalorian's a better show. If I compare this to Andor, I feel like it's pretty evident that Andor is exceedingly superior in the show, in quality and storyline and all of it. So it's like we just come off of Andor and it's exquisite, and it's like, oh, this is where the bar was, huh? Okay, that's cool. I don't know. It's hard. But I also think that maybe if either of you felt even slightly the way that I do about this episode, you probably would understand what I'm saying. But
well, I guess that leads us to you, David. What did you think of this episode in terms of being the first episode of the season?
It's what I expected. I liked it. Like, I mean, I'll respond to the Andor thing since you just brought that up. Like, I loved Andor, and I absolutely agree with you. Like, if I had to compare Mandalorian to Andor, yeah, Andor is an incredibly well done show that, at my age, like, if everything Star Wars were kind of like Andor, I'd be fine with that. Now, but I also recognize, like, not everything Star Wars is going to be like Andor. That's not going to happen.
Right.
And I don't look at Mandalorian the way that this story is being told as just not being, oh, it's just not as good as Andor. Like, it's a different kind of show. Like, it's for a different audience, really. Like, it's like comparing Andor to Bad Batch, or something like that. Like, this show in a lot of ways just feels like dessert. It feels like candy, compared to Andor that feels like a good healthy meal. Like, like
to be clear, I'm not actually comparing Mandalorian to Andor.
I know you're not, but you did just say, like,
I'm just saying, like, I just got off the heels of Andor and how spectacularly wonderful it was. And it's like, oh, we're back. Okay. It's kind of a shift of downshifting,
Like, I guess my point is, though, I don't look at it like a downshift. I look at it like I'm going into a different kind of Star Wars show. It's not like, yeah, I mean, as quickly to review the episode as first episodes go, no, it wasn't. I would say it's not like the first episode of season 2, which I thought was very solid for a first episode. I would agree with that, but overall I enjoyed it. Like, it felt like Star Wars. I was watching it going, it's good to be watching a good Star Wars show again. I'm saying that more in reaction to like Obi-Wan and definitely like Book of Boba Fett, which I did not like. Like the characters, the settings, everything, it feels like Star Wars, and I overall thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, there's very just kind of placating to younger audience kind of stuff in this, but it's done well, in my opinion, compared to stuff we've even seen in films that seems to be like forced, like Star Wars humor that's not done well. Like,
right.
But no, I mean, as first episodes go, it's not amazing. I didn't like go, oh my god, that was an incredible first episode, but I overall enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. It was short. I will continue to fall in the camp. I think, like many of us, that wishes this were a show that they were all like closer to 1 hour.
Even just 45 minutes. Like, come on.
Like it just it felt so short, and it was so short. I say that, I mean, if it's a great show, kind of like what does the time matter? But it just feels short, and I wish it weren't like that. But overall, I liked the episode. I thought it was good.
Well, it's like when I compare the shorter episodes of Mandalorian to the longer episodes of Mandalorian, I feel like the longer episodes feel more comfortable. Like, I feel like the story feels like it had time to settle and pull itself out. Whereas like in this episode, I felt like they were hauling butt through it.
Right.
That's because they were. It was 32 minutes long, I think it was.
35, including credits.
Probably. Right. So, like, yeah, and then you have a longer episode, like, I'm trying to think of the one. It's in season 1. It's the one that Bryce Dallas Howard directed. It's a longer one. It's really good. The storyline feels, it's like getting a little, like, it's like getting a short film, like it was really nice. And yeah, so I have to say, like, the short episodes, like, it kind of kills me a little bit. I'm like, you guys could just be making 45, 50-minute long episodes. Like, honestly, I don't know why we're doing 30-minute episodes.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. That thing bothers me to no end, just because of the fact that I feel like if you're going to only have 8 or 9 episodes in a season, then you should make those an hour. Seriously. And it's like, if you're going to do the 30-40 minute thing that like they've been doing, then why not have it at least as many episodes as Andor is? I mean, that's like, what did Andor have, like 12 or something?
12, I think it was, yeah.
And those were long episodes.
Yeah.
Those weren't even short.
And it's like, what amazes me about Andor, and I don't want to like sort of compare the two and kind of go on a tangent of that, but with Andor, not only did they have 12 episodes and pretty long episodes, but a lot of that was shot on location and done in a way that's more practical. Whereas the volume, we always hear about how much cheaper it is to be able to shoot at the volume and quicker and stuff like that. So you would think that you could have more episodes or have longer episodes, one of the two or both. And just it seems like we're getting short shrift on the amount now that you see more content coming out with long form episodes with higher budgets. And maybe I don't know. Maybe just hopefully, maybe that again, if they are slowing down on the amount that they put out, that helps them to at least expand the time and the frame of budget that they have for the per episode to make a longer episode. Because again, you look at things like the Rings of Power or House of the Dragon or Last of Us, and all these shows are like 1 hour, and the production budget on each episode is really high. Now, granted, they're only concentrating on these one shows and not a whole universe of shows. But if you only get like maybe 2 live action Star Wars series in a year, then I don't know why you can't afford to make those the best that they can be for at least an hour.
Right.
So I really hope that they do that. But I guess to give my quick thoughts on the episode is I think it was solid. I really felt like I really enjoyed Rick Famuyiwa's direction in it. I thought it looked good. I thought there was a lot of the old feeling of having this like be a good Star Wars show, like David mentioned, in that the same ways that Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan were sort of lacking in that way. This to me felt like how I felt watching Andor. Is like it was a level of Star Wars that I enjoy seeing and don't have a lot of issues with. That being said, I do think that the one issue that I kind of have with it is that in sort of in what Michelle said, as far as there's a lot that happens, there is a lot that happens in the episode, but yet at the same time, I felt like by the end of it, it took a step forward. It feels like in this story that we had that we're telling, that we know we're getting into, it felt like it didn't actually progress that much, even though there was a lot of different things going on within the episode. So it still felt to me like we don't get to the point that we are ready to see, and I feel like that's done on purpose, and sometimes that kind of needles me a little bit in terms of in order to do one thing, you got to go to this other thing first and then come back with this thing, and then we'll move on a little bit forward with the story. So that sometimes bothers me, because that's like, it's almost like I'm playing a video game and I'm going on a side quest as opposed to going with the main story. So outside of that, though, I did enjoy what I saw here and from the characters, and getting that old feeling back of nice being able to see Mandalorian back on the screen, though.
I was going to say, too, since you mentioned the volume, I mean, in my opinion, The Mandalorian still seems to be one example of a show that, or movie, but in this case, a show that uses the volume, I think, pretty effectively. Like,
yeah,
you brought up the volume, and I mean, obviously, I'm aware that they shoot this on the volume, but at no point did I watch this episode and go, "Oh yeah, this feels like the volume," like kind of like Obi-Wan, where I felt that all the time. Excuse me.
Right.
And then even, more recently in Ant-Man, where you could really feel like the presence of the volume on that film. Like, not that there was kind of bigger scope stuff in this episode necessarily, but still, like, it shot in a way I didn't even think about that.
I think the only time I really was like, oh wow, this feels like the volume, was when they first get to the planet that his friend is now kind of in charge of. And they're walking around and they're showing like his palace, and then they have a big mountain behind it, and it's got stuff built on the mountain. And I was kind of like, okay, that's a little volumey. But then even then, like them walking around and then having the sets that were built for that didn't feel very volumey. So overall, I agree. Like, I think the one thing the Mandalorian has going for it is that when they use the volume, they use it well. It's whereas, yeah, like you said, Obi-Wan, it felt like, dude, you got guys, come on, you're professionals.
So far, 2 seasons and 1 episode in, like, I feel like this show could continue its whole run without ever knowing the volume existed, and then they would reveal it afterwards, and I'd still be like, "Wait, what? Like, how did you shoot this?" Like, I would not have.
It makes me feel like they needed to take whoever's doing the work on the Mandalorian and then give a master class to people that are working on Boba Fett and that worked on Obi-Wan and be like, okay, so this is how we use the volume. You're not using it right, but we use it this way, and this way works. So just go with it. And they could be like, oh, let me get my notepad out. That's that makes sense from that angle. Yes. I'd be like, light bulb. Anyways. Rant over.
Well, I guess since we've all given our thoughts, we can get into a little bit of spoilers here. Like you said, it's a 30-minute episode. There's not a lot to spoil, but there are a few things that we can jump into here. So spoilers, if you have not seen this episode, we are going to, from this point on, give our thoughts on the episode in detail. So you've been warned. Anything, Michelle, that you want to point out within the episode that stuck out to you in any kind of way?
I guess it's kind of like what you were saying. It felt a little video game-ish. Like you said, like, in a way, they didn't accomplish anything this episode, and I didn't feel like they needed to accomplish anything. This is kind of a getting back into basics kind of a situation. We're getting the season geared up. But yeah, pretty quickly, freaking Mando's got like 3 or 4 freaking side quests. Like, they set up... It was like, okay, you're gonna have to go bathe in the things. End goal is you're gonna have to go bathe in the waters on Mandalorian planet. What I can't think of right now. Mandalore. Mm-hmm. So there's the goal, right? Okay, let me go to this planet to get the robot. Oh, the robot needs this thing. Oh, the thing is over here. Oh, okay, let's deal with it. But now you've got pirates, so I'm gonna have to help you deal with your pirates. Okay, there's that problem. And now the pirates are chasing me. There's that issue. Like, it was just like the digga. I was just like, oh my God, why are we on 3 or 4 side quests already? And it's the first 30 minutes of this season. Like, that was a smidge much for me. Like, to set up so many little side quests already. I was like, oh God, this is what we're doing this whole season just so we get the Mandalore to bathe in the water. It's like... It's only the first episode. How many more side quests are shoved in between now and then? Like, it seems like a decent amount, and hopefully it can keep my attention. And then I think my only other issue is, and it shocks me at absolute 0%. I just felt like every time Grogu was on screen, the whole thing was like, how can we make Grogu adorable in every shot he's in? Like, absolutely every single solitary shot. How can we make everybody just go, oh, like, he's
got to hug the little, like, whatever those creatures are called. I don't remember their names.
Zorians.
I was like, every little scene is just about how can we just make everybody now and just go, he's so cute. I love little Grogu, but it's kind of it's almost so much pandering to the Grogu fandom that makes me just go, oh God. Like,
it's so funny.
Go back to Luke already.
One of the things
you learning things with Luke.
You have force power.
I gotta say, how we were talking earlier about people who say anyways and anyway. One thing I will say that drives me up the wall, and
must be something I've said in the last 3 minutes because
no, not you. No, not you. No. Actually, it's a person that we are familiar with on YouTube, John Campia, who has John Campia Show. That he refuses, and has pointed out even within the episode that no matter how many times they want you to call him Grogu, he will always call him Baby Yoda, and it drives me nuts.
Really?
I
he's one of those fans.
It annoys me.
That's
annoys
insanity.
me.
It's like I hear people that are like that. Like, we'll be going through the Disney park, and people are like, "Oh, Baby Yoda," and I'm like, Grogu. I just walk by him. I'm like, Grogu.
Yeah. And in the comments, people, as he kept saying it, just putting out, his name is Grogu. It's like calling by his name is Grogu.
Well,
and
the
it's
funny
like,
thing
yes.
is it's almost like the episode nods specifically to that.
Right.
Like you have that moment where he corrects that character's name, Carl Weathers' character, like his name is Grogu.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and it's like, I don't know why you want to be defiant in calling him a thing that only people who just watch the show, they've never called him Baby Yoda in the show. If they had said that, then sure, why not? If anything, if you wanted to keep calling him the child, go at it, because they called him that, you know, so whatever. But it's like to just continuously call him Baby Yoda.
Such a weird thing to like a sword to die on. Like, no, I will not call him Grogu.
It's a huge sword
to die on. I know.
And I mean, like, I admit, like, I go back and forth between calling Din, and I never can say the last second. Din Djarin. Sometimes I call him Din. Sometimes I call him Mando. I kind of go.
Characters in the show call him Mando.
Yeah, it's like I kind of feel like I go back and forth on that. But no, like once it was like, oh no, his name is Grogu. It's Grogu, and it's like even to call him like Baby Yoda. Like I think I would refer to him as Baby Yoda more as a joke, but I'm like, no, it's the child. And then it was like, oh, his name is Grogu. Well, it's Grogu. Like that's his name. Like that's what. Anyways,
what'll happen is Campio will have us all fooled. Like when this show ends and it reveals he is actually like a Yoda clone, and then he'll be able to go, "See, guys, I was right.
I was right the whole time.
This is why I refuse to call him Grogu."
and from the beginning, David, I think even me and you had always been like, well, no, he's not Baby Yoda. It's like
the child,
just the same race.
Yeah, it's the same race.
Right.
It's like, what kind of backwards thinking is that, just to call somebody by the name
like
of
the
whatever
they've never seen is Han Solo, and now you see a baby
Han.
Baby Han.
Yeah, Baby Han. Right, exactly. It makes no sense. Well, one of the things. Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
No. Go ahead. I was just gonna finish up one last thought.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. You finish up, and I'll jump in.
I was just gonna say, but then like I felt like in the last 5 minutes, he gets to the new planet with the Mandalorian castle and now I cannot think of her name.
Bo-Katan.
Oh, Bo-Katan is like in charge of, and you find out in charge of really nothing. And I was kind of like,
place, though.
Oh, it's super awesome. Like, I'm really kind of hoping we get back to this, because I was like, wow, they really built a huge set for this one scene. I highly doubt that, but okay, cool. Because it's a solid set. Like, I was watching it going, oh, okay. No, like I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. We're off to the races here. Like that felt like finally we're getting into now we're getting into kind of the meat of the whole series, and that I enjoyed that part.
And then cut the credits,
and then it was the credits. So those are all of my thoughts at this point, really, on the episode. I mean, there's more, but we'll move on.
So one of the things I really liked was just the way it opened. I for sure thought we were in a flashback, because he made this helmet for this kid, and the kid I couldn't remember exactly what that actor looked like, but I remember thinking in my head, I was like, shouldn't that actor that played Din be a little bit older now? But it was like, okay. And I'm just going with it, thinking it's Mando, and then all of a sudden, once the creature, that alligator type creature, is attacking all the Mandalorians and they're trying to take it down, when Mando comes in his ship and shoots it down, I was like, oh, okay. I guess this wasn't a flashback. So that caught me completely off guard. Did you guys think that was a flashback, or did you kind of know that it was?
I was wondering at first if it was a flashback.
Okay.
I kind of went back and forth on it for like the first 30 seconds to a minute, but once they kind of got to the kid actually in the water, I was like, no, this isn't quite feeling like a flashback.
Okay.
See, with the kid, it was like, yeah, is this a young version of him? Even though I know the helmet was small, but it was small. Obviously, it's not his. It was like maybe his first helmet.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. No, I toyed with that in my head, that it was possibly a flashback.
Okay.
But I'll give credit where credit's due. Like the alligator crocodile creature,
turtle-looking thing.
Yeah. I was like, dude, this thing's awesome. Like I was like, I will give credit. Like the Mandalorian is really good with creating new Star Wars creatures. I don't want to say monsters, just creatures. They're aliens, they're creatures, they're animals that live on the planets, right? So it was like, I was like, man, this thing's freaking awesome. Like, just the way she paused and she stopped talking and she's like, no. It was just so like, I was like, oh, this is gonna get good. And then yeah, it was pretty cool. And at one point, like, yeah, the alligator, crocodile, turtle thing starts moving, and I'm like, death roll, yeah. Like, 'cause that's what the animal does. Like, it does the death roll, and I'm like, all right, it's a cool creature for sure.
Well, you mentioned that. Oh, go ahead, David.
No, I was going to say, kind of on a side note, when you mentioned the opening, one thing it's the little thing, but I loved how the opening, especially the terrible Star Wars intro that I had actually, I don't know if I've ever talked about. I hate it. I hate the whole like corporate logo Star Wars thing, like that. They showed the different helmets.
Oh, you don't like that?
No, I think it's stupid.
I love. I'm indifferent, but
I'm kind of indifferent to it. It doesn't matter, but I think it could be way better. I'm not a big fan of it at all. I liked how, because I don't think they've done this before in this show or any Star Wars, anything that I'm aware of, where it, it usually has its own kind of like music that goes with it. And they didn't use that. They use kind of pre-audio for the scene for it. And I was like, remember what I talked about in Ant-Man? Like, this is what I wanted from the Marvel logo in Ant-Man that we didn't get. Like,
I did think about you when that happened.
Like, this is kind of cool. I dug that. Sorry. It was a random little thing.
Well, now that you're talking about the opening, I do find it interesting that, well, for those who have not been watching all of the Star Wars things, a lot of the stuff that happened with Mandalorian and Grogu took place within a couple episodes of the Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
In the previously on, they don't actually show any of the stuff that happened.
Yeah, that was weird. I thought that was
fully
weird.
expected them to Now I completely
the fact
forgot
that they even I don't know rejoined together.
Yeah, I forgot all about that.
So
and they only kind of mention it in context within the story itself. Like when Grieve asked him, like, I thought you completed your mission, and he's like, it's complicated.
Came back to me,
yeah, and he just gives a brief sentence. So it's like, and then the whole conversation he has with the armorer that was like rehashing what basically was said in the Book of Boba Fett. So it was like they weaved it in there. And then I think maybe the only reason why they didn't have it in the previously on is because it was previously on The Mandalorian. And so they were only showing stuff from what happened in The Mandalorian. They did not go into the Book of Boba Fett and say, okay.
I mean, that's true.
That makes sense.
But I'm thinking
that's what's so annoying about how they did that.
So stupid.
They might have thought that it would confuse people if they pull something out of the Book of Boba Fett and put it in as a previously on, because then people would be like, wait, when did that happen on The Mandalorian? Like, when did I miss that?
That's fair. I mean, but that's what's so
fair,
stupid about how they included that in the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, I thought my son watched it with us, but he has not watched all of The Mandalorian. Like, he's missed a lot of this show.
I watched Boba Fett.
But when we sat down to watch the episode tonight, he watched it with us. He seemed to enjoy it. And I asked him, hey, do you want to go back and watch them all, which he seems interested in doing. And I imagine we will watch those first 2 seasons, and then we will watch those 2 episodes.
Yes, I was going to say, just those 2 episodes of Boba Fett, nothing else.
Yeah.
It sounds like a good unless if he wants to watch Book of Boba Fett, I'm happy to show it to him.
Sure. Maybe
we press start, leave the room, and come back later.
Yeah. So
everybody, enjoy your episode. Talk to you later.
That was interesting. But and back to the a little bit about the beginning with the creature. I really liked the idea of how well that it moved within that environment, and it did look pretty seamless with them interacting with it. I didn't notice it as being like a CG creation, and however what other way they probably would have done it within the volume, it looked pretty realistic with the water and everything else that they had to deal with within that scene. So I like that. And then another thing that made me also think that it was a young Din was how before he takes his oath, she stops him before he has to say that he will never remove his helmet. And it was like, I really thought that was we were watching because it,
right?
yeah, like because I'm
I
thinking,
thought the same
maybe there's a
thing.
loophole.
Yeah, there's a loophole. She never actually said it to him.
He never repeated it back. Like
Right,
he never actually said this
like,
part of
wait
the
a
oath.
second.
Technically.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a good fake out for me. And one of the other things that I think I literally let out an audible gasp or squeal or something or other is for any of the Rebels fans out there, when they're going through hyperspace and you see the Purgil in the
them,
background.
I was wondering what those were. I was like, I don't know what this is.
AKA space whales. But yeah, they are important in the Rebels story.
Okay.
And, maybe we'll have some importance here or possibly Ahsoka. So I really was happy that maybe. But so that was good. And then I really did like just being able to see a little bit of what was going on Navarro since the last time we had visited that planet, and how it really, like when David mentioned at some point, I forget if there was a specific point or maybe even the point I'm going into is that you felt like you were back within this world, and Star Wars really felt like that when he was on Navarro and he's walking through the city and you're seeing the different races of aliens and the different landscape of everything. I was just like, yeah, this is the stuff. This looks better and more realistic.
Like that, like, it's similar to the same scene we saw with Din Djarin and the Jawas, where he's in this little room with these whatever those creatures are again, trying to get them to work on this droid. And there's just something about like moments like that in Star Wars that feel so Star Wars.
Last Jedi? No.
They were in
they were in the Rise of
Skywalker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Babu Freak.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, did anybody pick up on like how they kind of glazed over what's her name not going to be in the
Cara Dune?
Yeah,
Cara Dune.
Give a little nod to
gave
that.
a little like, oh, she's
she got recruited.
Now. She's super busy, can't get her.
But it's interesting though because they didn't like just say, oh, she died or something weird, and they actually did address it, and it in that initial Investors Day or whatever that was for Star Wars, when Kathleen Kennedy, she had mentioned a series that was going to happen, Rangers of the New Republic or something like that. Rangers of the Republic.
It's like the excuse they give fits in to that.
Yeah, totally. It could have been part of that, of what was going to happen. So I do wonder if at some point, maybe if they recast the character, if she will reappear at some point, because I don't think that Gina Carano will be back as the character, but I do think them not killing her off and them saying that she was in this recruited in this special forces thing, it could possibly come back around at some point in time.
So you're saying there's a chance, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Leave that door open.
Yeah, they don't have to touch it, but it's
what
it's
a
out
career
there if they
killer.
do want to. Yeah,
such a
man. Yeah, but I think that everything else for me really worked within the episode as well. Just the banter between him and Grieve, and just the idea of trying to. I think what the thing that I was pointing to is, like, I didn't mind so much of, okay, you have to go to Mandalore and bathe in the waters and stuff like that, and those different things. I think the one that kind of got me was that it was like, okay, we need to repair IG-11. So now you got to go to this place to get, or well, he says, okay, well, what if I can get a processor chip? And then it's like, all right, so I guess we're going on a side quest. The one thing that I think that really, I feel like it will come back to maybe bite him, and I don't know. I get why they did it for story reasons, but I don't know that character reasons it would have happened this way. Is that once he encounters those pirates, which bad move on Greaves' part to let that guy go. Like, At what point have you ever seen the bad guy leave and warn everyone else not to go there? No, they usually come back with more forces.
Right.
They don't usually just say, "Oh, you got me. I'm on my merry way." But when Mando encounters them in space and has that battle, and then he sees that big pirate ship, and he's talking about the captain and whatnot. He's like, well, I got my mission to do. I'll see you guys later. And it's like, you don't want to give Grieve a heads up that, hey, there's this big pirate ship in the outside the planet that, they're kind of a little bit angry. So I wonder if when he comes back with his chip, if that place might be torn up because he did not, do anything about those pirates.
Yeah, no, I could totally see that. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah, I did. I was like, wow, we're just gonna let that. All right, cool, whatever. I mean, that's his problem, I guess.
I mean, yeah, in this case, he's got to get away. But you would have thought he would have sent a little communique.
Yeah, a little signal,
a little communique message. Like,
I'm busy. I got shit to do, but just so you know,
I just did a flyby on the main ship here from the pirate guy. He's pissed. What's up? But I gotta go do the thing escalator. Like, nothing. Like, I was gonna let go. He just literally went, not my problem, and kept on driving. Right.
It's for sure that we'll see them again. Now, whether or not they attack the planet or tear up, the city. Remains to be seen, but for sure we'll see that.
There's a setup there that they're not just gonna go, okay, that was a random little thing.
Random pirate. Cool.
Yeah. So I am looking forward to episode 2. I know that yesterday was a premiere in Hollywood, and they had the cast and Filoni and Favreau and some of the other people there, and they showed the first 2 episodes to the people present, and they weren't allowed to speak about the second episode, but some people kind of did sort of at least hint at it being where we start to get into the real meat of things. And this was more like a stepping back into this world and getting your footing kind of episode, more so than.
So they got 2 30-minute episodes. So they actually got to watch a real episode.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I do kind of wish that Disney Plus would have dropped the first 2 episodes for us, like they did with Andor.
When there's only 8, you don't want to rush it.
I know.
Is that so? It's only 8 episodes.
You know what? I don't know for sure that's the case, but I'm
gonna be silly.
I'm trying to find out right now.
I'm thinking it might be.
I'm looking, and it is apparently 8.
Yeah.
So what are your spoiler thoughts on this?
I mean, honestly, I don't think I have anything in particular that had to be like spoilers to bring up other than my original thoughts on it. Like, again, I like the episode. Like, I don't disagree with like some of the complaints at all. Like, I'm not saying it's perfect, but overall, I enjoyed it. It's kind of what I was expected. I expected from this kind of show, but nothing spoilery. I don't think that I was like, oh wait, I got to talk about this or that.
Yeah, I talked about all the stuff that I liked and was happy to see within the episode. So yeah,
and, I didn't realize it looks like Rick directed 2 more episodes, the final
7 and 8. Yeah, he talked about that in an article saying that it was important that now that he's an executive producer on the series with Filoni and Favreau, that he wanted to bring in they all wanted to bring in new directors, but he felt like he would be comfortable enough to at least kick it off and then pass off the baton to others that would be directing, and then to anchor it by doing those last 2 with the story that they're telling. So yep, looking forward to seeing who else we got. I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, Carl Weathers directs at least 1 more, and I think Bryce does at least 1 more.
Oh yeah,
I think
she's got good episodes.
Yes,
I like the ones that she does.
I just had it in front of me. Yeah, she has 1 episode this season, episode 6.
Oh yeah, I like the episodes she's done. I will say they're pretty solid.
Yeah, Carl Weathers has episode 4, and then the other directors I'm not familiar with. Maybe they've done episodes.
I think I remember hearing them announce, and I remember looking at, or they said in the thing that I read what they'd done in the past. I was like, well, okay, then decent stuff they've done. So looking forward to seeing what they do.
And yeah, I guess because Dave Filoni's been so busy with Ahsoka, he didn't direct any of these episodes.
Yeah, which he's probably. I would not surprise me if he's directing all the episodes of Ahsoka. It would not surprise me.
He's got a couple episodes that he co-wrote with Favreau this season, but just 2. Yep. All of them are written by Favreau and either by himself or with somebody else.
Yeah.
When is Ahsoka coming out?
We don't know.
No release date. I imagine we'll learn all that stuff at Celebration next month.
Celebration
in May. So yeah, I think we'll get a date for that, as well as Skeleton Crew and whatever else. Maybe a couple movie announcements.
Well,
and I really do feel like the first one out the gate, even though it was almost pretty much the last one announced, I almost feel like at this point we'll get the Lindelof movie first before everybody else's movie.
I agree. I think everyone is saying, yeah, we're going to hear movie news at Celebration this year. And I would imagine we'll hear something about the Lindelof.
David Lindelof's directing a movie.
Yeah.
Or writing. He wrote, and I know he's writing it, right?
He's writing it.
Yeah.
Producing.
Yeah.
Just writing.
Probably producing as well. I don't know.
Probably.
I will have to say, that movie's. It's already just have hopes for that, just because of what he does with games.
Okay.
No, I do.
There's mixed feelings about him. So
I know. I mean, my thing is I love Game of Thrones and that world. I
don't think he's had any. Is he had any Game of Thrones?
I thought he did.
No,
Game of Thrones.
No, I don't think so.
I am
the last thing that Lindelof did
highly
for sure lost. The last thing Lindelof did that was very highly acclaimed was Watchmen on HBO.
Oh yeah,
I loved Watchmen.
Oh, and I thought it was great.
I am thinking of somebody completely different. Anyways, but still, no, he does good stuff too.
Yep.
Anyways.
But then he also did Prometheus, right? And
well, but at least
everyone has hiccups.
Well, he also did Leftovers. I didn't watch that, but that is another highly acclaimed show. So.
Yeah, that one was pretty well acclaimed.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to Ahsoka. Hopefully the people that are working on that show did go to the masterclass, people that work on this show for the volume, so they understand how to use the proper way.
Maybe I can get Rosario Dawson to tell me when it's dropping.
Yeah.
Ask me.
Yeah. Is your thing before Celebration or after Celebration?
That's before.
Before.
Yeah, MegaCon's before Celebration.
But only by a few days.
No, Celebration's in May, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, this is like a month before. Over a month.
Yeah, she ain't gonna tell you crap.
Oh, she'll tell me.
She ain't gonna tell you crap. You know how many people are gonna ask her that weekend?
I'm not gonna ask her.
You'd be that guy.
I wouldn't even get time. We know how these photo things go.
You'd be that guy. You're gonna be like,
yeah.
Tell me when it drops.
It's like, oh,
I think
you're like, oh, you're one of those.
I'm sure there will be some of those in the line with her, but
I
would. I think people might riot if we didn't get some Ahsoka news, and what I mean is substantial Ahsoka news, because it's like we still have not even gotten the official casting for Thrawn yet, and it's like we don't know. And then they barely announced in a publication who is playing Ezra, so it's like I think people are going to want to see them on stage and have some. At this point, maybe even some footage to show, because they have shown one thing that they did once before. I think it was maybe at Anaheim, maybe D23, I think. So, but
I thought it was at Celebration last year.
Might have been at Celebration. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might have been a Celebration. So, so I think we're due for that. And then the other one that I think we're very much due for, and the one I'm most looking forward to is the Acolyte. I really would like to see them come out on stage with that cast and show some stuff and talk more about that too.
If Acolyte episodes are 30-minute episodes, I'm going You could at least.
I'm already holding myself to that's what it's going to be, so I don't get upset about it.
But you should. I should too.
Do you think Acolyte's going to follow kind of the way that the current Star Wars shows are, or follow more in like the way Andor's kind of done?
In the like aesthetic
and style.
I would imagine it's not going to be like. I don't think we're going to see. I'm not going to say we're never going to see anything like Andor ever again. I'm not going to say that, but
right.
I don't think anything else they have planned is in that vein. I think that's all. Was it Terry Gilliam's?
Yeah, like Tony Gilroy.
Tony Gilroy. Sorry, Tony Gilroy is like, his manifestation is that like that in Rogue One. Like I mean, and if the numbers for Andor had been better, and I say that, and I don't think we have any official numbers on anything. They haven't released numbers, but there's been, I guess, either leaks or rumors about like how the ratings were for Andor, and it's not great. Like if it had been like through the roof, they hope, then they'd probably be like, oh shit, people like this. Like we need to make more Star Wars stuff like this. But unfortunately for me and for all of us, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I agree.
Why can't people like good things? Why can't people like good art?
I mean, but I could also imagine where the Acolyte isn't. It's kind of in between. It's not.
Sure.
I don't think it's going to be like the Mandalorian, where the Mandalorian, like I said, is kind of just this not fan service. I don't want to say it's totally fan servicey, but it's a little bit like, and it's like candy. Yeah. It's just fun. Star Wars, but well done, in my opinion. Well done, fun.
It's Star a Werther's candy.
Yeah,
it's not just candy. It's Werther's.
I think Acolyte could be its own kind of aesthetic, where it's hopefully not Obi-Wan. Really, hopefully not. Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, I shudder.
But in which case, we'll be going. God, if only it were like Mandalorian.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh.
I imagine it might be its own kind of feel. I hope, especially because it's kind of tied into the High Republic, which is an era of Star Wars where we haven't seen on screen yet.
Right. And that's why I was kind of like, oh, would it be kind of an Andor-ish type of aesthetic kind of thing? Kind of like what we get when she's in the big chamber room that I can't think of now. When she's in Congress. What do they call that?
The Senate?
The Senate, yeah.
I would imagine, though, like if I had to guess, when you look at just the actual, like the creative look of the image of that show, it'll probably look similar to Mandalorian and everything else.
Yeah, I would agree.
My guess.
I would agree. Same with Ahsoka, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, definitely with Ahsoka.
No, Ahsoka's going to be, that I know.
If anything, I almost feel like the outlier, oddly enough, that might be, I wouldn't say close to Andor, but maybe closer than the others, might end up being Skeleton Crew. Just because John Watts might have that sort of like visual acuity to kind of make it look a little bit more cinematic, so to speak.
Right.
Well,
we've gone on for a while.
We've gone on for a very long time.
I mean, we started this show joking that we could talk about this for 2.5 hours, and I mean, we could try. If we try to get to 2.5 hours, it's possible.
We're pretty close to 2, so
yeah,
we are.
We're almost there.
So, yeah, with that, I think we're going to wrap things up. As always, we would love to hear back from everybody listening and watching. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave all your questions and comments down below. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever we go live or post any videos in the future. We are also streaming this live on Twitch and Facebook, so you can find us in those places as well. With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening and watching, everybody.